Welcome back to the deep dive. You gave us the sources, the research, and the notes, and we are here to give you the absolute essentials. Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into something that is keeping, well, pretty much every executive up at night: the radical evolution of employee retention strategies, specifically charting the course for 2026.
And our mission today is really to cut through the noise. We're looking at sources focused on moving far beyond, the simple, antiquated tactics. We're hunting for the data-driven, technology-enabled approaches that actually promise measurable results.
And what kind of results are we talking about?
Specifically, the goal of reducing employee turnover by up to an impressive 40%.
40%? Wow. That's a number that completely transforms an organization from the
Yep.
bottom line right up.
Yeah.
And the timing for this, it just couldn't be more urgent.
Yeah.
When we look at your sources, the current metrics, they really paint a picture of a crisis.
They really do. I mean, consider this. 51% of employees are currently actively looking for a new job right now.
Half the workforce.
Exactly. And that sheer volume contributes directly to voluntary turnover rates, which Mercer's 2025 survey clocked at 13.5% on average across all industries.
And the financial leakage from that turnover is just staggering.
Yeah.
The sources show replacement costs averaging, $35,700 per departure?
Per departure. And if you're trying to fill a highly specialized leadership role, that cost can easily balloon to 200% of the annual salary. It's an astronomical expense.
An expense we are just sort of choosing to absorb.
But here's the data point that should really frame every action you take. Our research reveals that 42% of employee departures are entirely preventable.
42%, so it's not a talent problem.
Not at all. It suggests the core issue is a deeply flawed system for managing and valuing the talent you already have. The system itself is broken.
Okay, let's unpack that. The system is broken. One source, I think it was citing workforce consultant Dr. Sarah Chen, stated it so plainly. The traditional approach to employee retention is broken. It seems to be driven by employees fundamentally redefining their whole relationship with work. What does that mean in practice?
It means the relationship has evolved way past the transactional nature of just a paycheck. This paradigm shift goes far beyond compensation, which, for decades was the only lever HR departments ever really pulled.
The money isn't the main driver anymore.
It's a factor, but modern strategies have to address comprehensive needs. We're talking performance-based career growth, integrated employee experience platforms, and crucial mobile engagement. If you only focus on the salary, you've completely missed the point.
Let's get into two specific traditional tactics that really need an overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
First up, workplace flexibility programs. Flexibility remote work, flexible scheduling. It's moved from a nice little perk to a baseline expectation. Research you cited shows 82% of employees prioritize work-life integration. It's just the cost of entry now.
That's exactly right. But the sources highlight a really common and often disastrous pitfall here:
Which is?
flexibility without structure. We saw this anecdote where a director noted that implementing unlimited PTO actually led to people taking less vacation time.
That feels completely counterintuitive. Why would they take less time off?
Because the lack of clear boundaries, the pressure to perform, it just made them feel guilty. They felt obligated to stay logged in, which defeats the entire purpose of the policy.
So the psychological pressure was too high.
Exactly. So the solution isn't to remove the flexibility, but to structure it. This means, proper manager training on setting boundaries, establishing core collaboration hours. You have to make the flexibility functional, not just anxiety-inducing.
That's a great example of how a human-centered policy needs a strategic framework to actually work. Okay, the second area that demands a big modernization is professional development. We know the old hierarchical promotion tracks are just too rigid. They're inadequate for today's workforce.
The new focus absolutely must be on continuous learning. You just can't rely on one big annual conversation about training anymore. It doesn't work. And the data strongly backs this up. 94% of employees commit to a longer tenure with organizations that actively invest in personalized learning pathways and skills assessment tools.
So it has to feel tailor-made for them, not just some mandatory course checklist.
Precisely.
So if the diagnosis is that the old systems are broken, the question is, what does the future blueprint even look like? How do we build that personalized, continuous experience?
Well, that realization, that seamless continuity, requires a sophisticated technological infrastructure. That's the biggest hurdle for traditional HR. And this leads us directly into the technology layer, which is how you get from manual processes to measurable success.
Okay, this is where it gets essential. The new paradigm is all about technology driving retention.
And what's fascinating here is the massive competitive advantage you get by moving to integrated human capital management platforms, HCM platforms. For years, organizations just cobbled together these fragmented HR tools, one system for scheduling, another for benefits, a third for performance reviews.
And I imagine that system, that fragmentation, is just the definition of friction.
It is, and that friction accelerates turnover. Imagine needing 5 different passwords just to clock in, check your pay stub, and see your goals. Unified HRMS platforms eliminate all this mess through single sign-on and automated workflows, and the results are just undeniable.
How undeniable.
Organizations using these comprehensive workforce management platforms, they achieve a 40% retention improvement within just 12 months.
40% in a year.
And that's a 31% better outcome than organizations still stuck managing those fragmented systems.
Okay, so that integrated platform then generates all the data for what you call the ultimate early warning system, engagement analytics. You just can't wait for the exit interview anymore. The damage is done.
Exactly. Data-driven retention strategies track engagement patterns in real time. This means monitoring things like recognition participation rates, goal completion times, the frequency of manager check-ins. This behavioral data is highly predictive.
But we know employees worry about surveillance. When we talk about real-time engagement data, how do the sources reconcile that proactive monitoring with employee privacy and trust?
That's a crucial question. The sources emphasize this data must be used to measure system health and management effectiveness, not to spy on individual employees. When you do it correctly, the result is better for everyone. Companies using these tools experience 34% fewer unexpected resignations.
34% fewer. Why?
Because the system flags systemic issues, like, say, a team that hasn't received any recognition in 3 months. That allows managers to intervene proactively and retain their high-value people before they even think about updating their resume.
And speaking of recognition, we have to talk about the finding on appreciation technology. Your sources just hammer this point home, that appreciation often matters more than money.
This is where the human element and tech just perfectly intersect. Peer-to-peer recognition platforms make employees 45% less likely to seek external opportunities. But here is the statistic that should permanently change your strategy. Research shows that receiving timely recognition predicted whether someone stayed or left 91% of the time.
Wait, 91%? That almost sounds too high. Are we really saying a simple thank you matters more than the size of the paycheck for long-term commitment?
The data is unequivocal. It's not that salary doesn't matter, it does. It's a prerequisite, a hygiene factor. But once you meet that market rate, the psychological factors take over. Recognition addresses belonging, value, and psychological safety. When employees feel consistently undervalued, a slightly better offer is just an excuse to leave. That feeling of value is what this technology captures and reinforces.
And crucially, these systems have to be mobile first, easily accessible, especially for distributed teams. If you have to log into some clunky desktop system, it just fails immediately.
Right, and that need for seamless mobile access is the perfect transition to our next point, the distributed workforce. We're not just talking about office workers at home. We mean field-based workers, the 80% of healthcare workers and frontline staff, where conventional HR programs often completely miss the mark.
Yeah, they often feel totally isolated, disconnected from headquarters. So how do these mobile-first solutions specifically help with their retention?
They offer a tremendous ROI by connecting them instantly. Mobile-first tools increase participation in recognition programs by 43% among distributed teams, just because it's as easy as sending a text. But the operational benefits are huge, too. 50% faster digital onboarding and 67% faster mandatory training completion, all via their smartphones.
So the technology is really a lifeline, keeping those workers connected, compliant, and efficient. Let's zero in on a sector where this is acutely painful. Healthcare. Turnover for nurses is hitting, 18.4% annually? We often blame patient burnout, but your sources point to something else.
That's right. While physical burnout is definitely a factor, the unique driver of turnover cited here is administrative and regulatory stress. Imagine you are a nurse, you're stressed by patient loads, and then on top of that, you have to deal with overwhelming documentation, certification chaos, and long hiring delays. That administrative dread just piles on.
That system friction again. It's creating the problem.
Yeah.
So what's the high-tech solution here?
Compliance automation, integrating solutions for critical processes like background checks, using technology like CheckR and secure digital document management. These are just non-negotiable now.
And that involves some heavy security terms like AES 256 encryption. For the listener, what does that level of security actually mean in practice? Why is it essential for retention?
It means you're using the gold standard. Think of it this way. AES 256 is the same military-grade encryption banks use to protect your financial records. When you're dealing with employee PII, with medical credentials, that trust is essential. And the real-world benefit is huge. Automated background check processing time can be cut by 90%. That means new staff get on the floor faster, relieving the chronic staffing delays that cause burnout for the entire team.
So you're retaining staff not just by praising them, but by making their lives less administratively painful so they can focus on the work they actually love.
Precisely. It turns frustration into efficiency.
Which brings us to our final section, and it's maybe the most important: avoiding the pitfalls. Because technology alone isn't going to fix a toxic culture.
Absolutely not. And pitfall number one, which is arguably the most critical, is ignoring the manager factor. Gallup research is painfully blunt on this. Managers account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement.
70%.
If you have a bad manager, all the integrated platforms in the world will just document the departure more efficiently.
So the solution isn't just buying software. It's really about investing in your managers. How do we make sure they're part of the solution?
It means providing coaching resources, clear communication training, and then holding leaders accountable for their team engagement metrics, not just their raw business outcomes. You have to measure how well they're building a positive microculture.
And pitfall number two is treating retention as a set-and-forget initiative. You can't just launch a program and then walk away.
That's just a recipe for program fade. Retention requires continuous refinement. Regular pulse surveys, data analysis, and adjusting your strategies based on that flow of information. The moment data collection stops, you are driving blind again.
This all raises the critical question that you, the listener, need answered. How do we sell this internally? How do we quantify the ROI on these systems?
Modern HR tech makes the business case crystal clear. We can just use the example from the source material. For a 100-employee home care agency, achieving that 40% retention improvement, that translates to preventing 15 to 20 departures a year. That alone can save between $45,000 and $100,000 annually in replacement costs.
That is a massive return. It justifies the investment not as a cost center, but as a genuine profit protection measure.
Exactly. Key metrics you can track include cutting time to productivity for new hires, which digital onboarding can reduce by 50%, and calculating the cost per prevented departure. When your retention programs show a 3-to-1 return on investment, the business case practically writes itself.
So, to summarize the huge transformation we've uncovered today, 2026 retention is about writing a brand new playbook. It's about merging a human-centered culture with sophisticated, frictionless technology to create employee experiences where people actually want to stay, grow, and contribute their best work.
That's the core takeaway. The organizations that win the talent war will be the ones that realize the employee experience is just as fundamentally important as the customer experience, because the source material suggests they are now equally critical to business success, to measurable profitability.
A truly provocative thought to leave you with. If retention is now a business imperative tied directly to the customer experience, how quickly can your organization make that switch from fragmented HR tools to an integrated, human-centric system? That's it for this deep dive. We hope you feel ready to tackle the retention challenges of 2026.